a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes Radio, where we are changing the world, wait for it, one ohm at a time. This week we're going to be talking to an old friend, compatriot. We've done many different dances together in the years we've known each other. She is a fascinating woman. She will have much interesting and occasionally sarcastic and somewhat humorous things to say. But before we get there, as always, let's warm you up by talking about the hot topic. Before we get started, for those of you who are new and those of you who need a reminder, you can come to facebook.com/MyDrKevin, MyDrKevin. At the top of that page, you will find pinned to the top a big, huge banner that says, "What are your superpowers?" That is where you can leave questions and comments, and then they will be shared on the air. I will read them for our guest, or if the questions are for me, we're very happy to share that with you. I'm going to remind you this week, like I do every week, I am like a broken record. If you don't know what a record is, don't make that comment, or the record won't be the only thing that breaks before the day is over. You have a chance, an opportunity, a divine right to make change in the world. It's what you are here to do. But you will not make change by sitting down, Velcroed to your couch with your remote control, glued to your computer screen. You're not going to make it by drooling on your remote control. You're not going to make it by complaining to everybody else around you who will listen to you, but not make positive statements, take positive actions, and speak out. I have been doing radio for over a decade now, and I have acquired lots of listeners along the way, and they want to hear what you have to say. They want to hear the questions you want to ask. You have a chance to stand up, speak out, and make a difference. You do that by coming to facebook.com/MyDrKevin or tweeting me at the hashtag MyDrKevin, MyDrKevin, or even at Web of Light, WEBOFLIGHT. Any of those ways will get your question to me, your comment to me, and you get a chance to speak out. You get a chance to interact. You get a chance to make a difference. But you get a chance, but you have to take the choice. So the choice is yours. Now, as we all know, my hot topic can be something that is warm and fuzzy and warms the cockles of my heart. Or it can get me a little hot under the collar. It's very rare that I say this. This one does a little bit of both. You are going to, what I want to talk about, and then I'm going to see what today's guest thinks about it, is cell phone etiquette. What is the etiquette for cell phones? And how far do you, as a participant in a conversation, have rights? The other day, I was at a place where I was having a very serious conversation with somebody, and I have a private practice. I see clients and stuff like this, and I said, I would really appreciate it if you would turn off your cell phone. We don't have much time. We have a lot we need to do. I thought I had just asked them to drown their baby. I had this image that somehow I was putting a gun to their head, that they should turn off their cell phone and focus 100% on our conversation. This individual was so upset that I would ask them to shut off their cell phone. And I said, is somebody dying in the hospital? Is there some great tragedy that you need to be updated on? Is anything happening in the world that can't happen unless you're available on your cell phone? They couldn't come up with anything. But it was like almost asking an alcoholic to put down the bottle in mid-drink. I'm becoming very concerned about how addicted we are to technology, to cell phones, to laptops, to tweets and text and all of the things in between. But I am now really starting to push the concept and the idea that you, as a participant in something, have a right to ask somebody to turn their cell phone off. And that right should be respected if they want to interact with you. There was a time, a long time ago, before cell phones, when I had a very good friend of mine, and she got into this habit that she came over to my house on a regular basis, stoned. I don't have anything against getting stoned. I think marijuana should be legal. I think it's all a big, brouhaha. But I didn't have as good of conversations. I wasn't appreciating my friend. And I was concerned because it was like every time. And I finally said, I cannot have you come over and talk to me unless you are clean, not stoned. I don't care if you got stoned in the morning and you saw me in the afternoon. I don't care if you leave and light up and toke. I have no judgment on it. But it's my time with you. It's my time with you. And I think I deserve to get you. I'm starting to feel the same way about cell phones. So that is my hot topic. And today I have one hot lady who you're not going to see her picture because she didn't put it on the posting for the Facebook. My gain, your loss. And so today's guest is Tonya Dawn Recla. Are you there, Tonya? Hello.
I am here.
Tonya has spent the last 2 decades exploring the human psyche and cracking the code of enlightenment and self-actualization. During her career as a government special agent, she honed her superpowers and started exploring the spiritual and metaphysical realms of intuition in human consciousness. You can find out more about Tonya and her journey at superpowers. I'm looking for it because it's at the bottom. Superpowerexperts.com. That is superpowerexperts.com. And you can always come to facebook.com/MyDrKevin. And there's a click-through right there for all of the ways you can get in touch with her. So what do you think? What rights does the person have in interacting with somebody who is a cell phone addict?
So first I want to say that it's not so much that I had a blonde moment and didn't post my picture. I was a spy. We don't put our picture places. Just kidding. It's the blonde hair. Okay. I like the cell phone etiquette question for sure. I'm a big observer of human behavior, and part of it has to do with how my superpowers work. And so I see possible futures based on every single momentary choice that we make. And so I observe, and I agree with you completely. I am very selfish with my time and my energy. And if I'm going to engage with somebody, it's going to be in a way that is meaningful. And so I like the idea of feeling confident enough to ask somebody to put it aside. Now the flip side of that is you absolutely have a right to not turn off your cell phone. There's all this glorious give and take in relationships of I get to make a request and then you get to respond to the request. But for me, it's like I just observe that. I file information away, and I think I would be a little bit hard-pressed to make the connection between why somebody would rather have access to their phone than to engage with me in a meaningful way. Maybe they're not exclusive to each other, but I tend to lean on the same side you do.
Well, and I think that some of it, I do think that there is a part of it that people have a hard time doing intentional, intense connection. I think especially the people under the age of 30 or 35, I think it's become a lost art to be fully engaged with somebody.
I see it less in chronological age than I do in awareness. I do think that there are stages of awareness where people feel like it's more difficult for them to engage and interact with people. I think sometimes it can come down to just basic attraction and how does somebody want to be spending their time? And if they're not in touch enough with that within themselves, then it's difficult for them to communicate that to the outside world as well. And it's so much easier to be distracted than to really ask yourself some of those hard questions and take action on them. So I agree with that.
Are you seeing, now you said you don't think it's an age thing, and I on one hand, I agree, because I see it in all ages, but on the other hand, I am concerned that there does seem to be a more difficulty in the 20-somethings and going into the teenagers of doing that connection because everything is so technology focused. And I'm seeing a backlash. I'm seeing kids that are saying, I don't even want a cell phone anymore. I don't want one. I don't want a Facebook account, that are backlashing against that. But do you see that as well or not really?
I see a lot of stories around that. I don't think that it's a whole lot different than most of the complaints about every single generation. You know, I just got done reading a whole series of articles on the millennials and how horrible they are. And then, oh, by the way, how amazing they are. And I'm not sure that dialogue is any different generation to generation. I think that there's people who represent all of that within each generation. So the individuals that I know of, I know like amazing teens, who are amazingly aware and capable of connection. What I do think is true is that our what drives us, what gets our attention has changed. I see that even in myself. I try to go back and watch movies. My husband, Justin, makes fun of me because I can't go back and watch a movie that entertained me maybe even 5-10 years ago. It's like, oh, it's so boring. It's so slow. So I notice in myself how my attention gets swayed easily and what it takes to really keep my attention. I'm not sure it's a bad thing, though. I'm an academician at heart, but I'd be hard pressed to write a full-on research paper at this stage of things. So I think it's easy to say that it's a bad thing, but I'm not sure that's true.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes Radio, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one Om at a time. On the Dr. Kevin Show, we challenge everything and everyone. If there's somebody who knows how to step up to the plate and accept a challenge, or even offer it one, it is tonight's guest, Tonya Recla. She is the founder of What Are Your Superpowers? Superpower Experts, actually, is what she's the founder of. You can find out more about her at superpowerexperts.com. Tonya continues as a lifelong student of energy manipulation, transmutation, clair senses, intentional molecular creation, and etc. She believes everyone has the power to create a multi-dimensional existence and master the human experience, even the human experience, I'm sure. Tonya, welcome back.
Thank you.
In this segment, this is Outside the Box with Dr. Kevin. So we would like to ask you, where would you like to take our listeners outside the box? Where do you want to expand their comfort zones?
I want to talk about superpowers, shockingly enough. The whole concept of superpowers is one that kind of people are really drawn to, but at the same time, they're hesitant to think that they have them. I can't tell you how many times a day people will walk up to me and say, do you think I have superpowers? And I'm like, yes, of course you have all of them if you so desire. And so I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what that means. You know, teleportation, intuition, empathy, telekinesis, like all of the clair senses. You know, and what it takes to really tap into those, and can people really truly use them in this world? And I'm here to tell you, absolutely. You know, and it's not so far-fetched to believe that we have these amazing abilities within us. And most of us are completely aware that some aspect of us has been telling us this for quite a long time. It's just difficult to believe it. There's so many reasons from our society and our programming why we don't believe that. But it's important to me to just spread that message and say, absolutely, you have superpowers. Absolutely, you're special. Absolutely, you can do amazing things in the world. So that's really where I want to challenge people.
Okay, so, and you know, this is not something you're going to get an argument from me over. But what I am curious about is, first of all, and you know, you have the poster child of psychic intuitive children that lives with you, who I'm long overdue visiting, but that's beside
long overdue, and she reminds me of that quite often.
But what was your? I mean, you know, the thing is kids know they have superpowers, and then we kind of beat it out of them. Is how I've always looked at it. I've said it in a number of different ways. When do you first remember using your superpowers as a child?
You know, it's amazing how many people have asked me that lately, so it must be time to really take a hard look at it. I always knew I was different, always. But I'll be honest with you, like, I really just thought I was very smart, because that's how it was framed to me. Was, you know, I was in gifted classes, I was in honors college, like, it was, I knew I thought about things differently than most people. I never assigned it to anything different until it was in college. I was a freshman in college, and we were hanging out with these cool sophomore guys. And one of them came up to me and said, you know, nobody wants to know that you can see inside of them. If you want to hang out with us, you have to stop doing that. And I was shocked. I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, didn't you say that you knew that so-and-so had this going on, and so-and-so that this is really what was happening in his life? And I was like, well, of course. And I said, but doesn't everybody know that? Like, is that a secret? Like, it was just, I was floored. And I stayed up that entire night to make the choice to not engage my intuition so I could continue to have friends. And I remember making that decision. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with Neva that I realized how much I had shut down.
Yeah. And I can see Neva in college and somebody saying that to her looking at them and saying, yeah, so what? Suck it up and get over it.
Yep. She will be 1,000 times stronger than I was in those moments, for sure.
Well, it's very interesting. And I don't know if this, I remember when I first started doing professional psychic work, literally getting paid to be a psychic, I was like 16, 17. But when people would ask me, it was so much of a I got blonde hair, blue eyes, I talk to ghosts, I see the future, hang out in some past lives, like, what's your point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wasn't not even around? I mean, were there no signposts that you can think of in your childhood?
No, but I think I understand why, because I'll be honest with you, had I known that, had I had access to that, if that was readily just even talked about, I would not have gone down the path that I did. And so consequently, I ended up, after my master's degree, ended up enlisting in the Army. Well, and by the way, the bachelor's and the master's degree were all in thinking, critical theory, intercultural communication, very pragmatic, practical, kind of logical basis. And then I enlisted in the Army, and then I became a spy. So it's I think that my trajectory here was to make sure I was very, very well founded in the mundane, the logical, the really grounded elements of that, so that when I did tap back into this, which I'm very clear Neva agreed to, bring forward for me and help me see, then it would be a really integrated existence. And so when I talk about superpowers and, clairvoyance and stuff like that, people tend to hear it a little bit differently because of my background and because of those credentials and because of that experience. So my take on it is more superpowers-esque versus people conjuring up images of metaphysical shops and, throwing bones and all these other things. So it's a whole different, I get to say things that people who normally wouldn't walk inside a metaphysical shop will hear, although I'm saying the same thing everyone else is.
Well, and it's funny because we've always talked about, and you and I have had these conversations privately before about the whole idea of, there cannot be too many voices saying this stuff in too many different ways.
Absolutely.
There are so many ways to kind of put it out there. And, the fact I had all of that early experience, but did the business degrees and did business. And so when I came back into the new age metaphysical world, they didn't see the psychic child. They saw a businessman in a suit and they're going, what the hell are you doing here?
Yep. Exactly. And that's the game right now. If I had to sum up superpower experts in a single mission, it is literally the idea that we are helping people hone their superpower so they can show up in their own uniqueness, not robots of, it's not the Tonya show, let's make little Tonyas. Your uniqueness, your blend of all of it, because there are people waiting to hear it in the exact way you're going to express it. And that to me is the work to be done right now.
Which brings up the point that I know you and I have talked about it. I was recently on your show. I don't think it's aired yet, has it?
Yeah, I thought it did. I'd have to go back and check.
Okay, because I didn't get a link. Please send me a link so I can spread it out to the world.
Oh, you'll get a link, so it must not have aired yet.
It eliminates any kind of concept or need. I mean, this is how I look at it, for any kind of competition in this.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing. I tell people all the time, in full transparency, I very selfishly am doing this work because I just want more people to play with. And I love the synchronicities. I love the affirmations. You know, you and I have talked before where it's like, oh, wow, you know, I got that hit too, or that's exactly how I see it. We say it differently, but it's all tapping into the same kind of concepts and stuff. And it's, to me personally, like, I love that. That's what I live for. I recruit 24/7. And when I find people who have puzzle pieces to plug into the puzzle, it's like nothing excites me more than bringing more people and more people into play. The goal was to build a system and a foundation that could sustain that level of growth and make it like create this inexhaustible model so we truly could all come and play together. And that's what we're about over there. So it's very exciting to me.
Yeah, it's so funny. I don't know if you're aware of this, but about 2 years ago with somebody we both know, Wes Chapman, I actually shot a whole course called What Are Your Superpowers?
Oh, very cool.
Have a course online called What Are Your Superpowers? And it talks about this stuff. And that was before the superpower expert stuff. So it's so funny that we were paralleling, but not in communication about it, though I was going in a very different direction in that line thought. But still, we interestingly were paralleling.
Oh, yeah, and I would contend we were absolutely in communication about it, just at levels we weren't conscious of. Like, I can't tell you how many people, I got the download, 2 years ago now for this model, and I love when I talk with people and they're like, oh my gosh, I've seen this. Like, I heard this. Like, this was 2 years ago I got that. And I'm like part of me, I have to be honest, I had a little bit of a freak out moment the other day, and I looked at my husband, I'm like, am I just a pawn? Like, what is going on around here? Because so many people have all the same messages. I'm like, who is using me in this regard? But once I got over that little fear storm, it was like, wow, how amazingly synergistic we all are. So guaranteed you and I were in communication and we just didn't know it.
Yeah, we are coming up on break. I expect any minute now, any second now to be hearing the music, so the timing's perfect. We'll be right back from the Dr. Kevin Show, where we're challenging everything and everyone with our tonight's guest, Tonya Dawn Recla at superpowerexperts.com.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
And I'm Alicia Isaacs-Howes.
And I'm Catherine Glass. And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. You can find us every week here on OMTimes Radio at Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive? Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show, where we challenge everything and everyone here on OMTimes Radio. Tonight we are dancing the dance of exploration, discovering new countries, discovering old countries with new names, with none other than Tonya Dawn Recla. Tonya is the founder of the Superpower Experts. You can find out more about Superpower Experts at superpowerexperts.com, where they're here to say to you, what are your superpowers? And so when Tonya works, she considers her clients the Ego Wrangler and rely on her to clear the path between them and their highest potential. Her ability to both lovingly hold space and pointedly, and let me tell you, Tonya and I go way back. I've heard that Tonya point before. Pointedly call bullshit. Endears her to all who seek her guidance. So, and the only person that calls bullshit more than Tonya is her daughter Neva, who's 6 now. So, now, this is because you've not been on my show before. If you come back at some other time, you won't have to go through this. But this is where you get the quiz. Because this is called Behind the Curtain. So, what movie did this line come from? Ignore the man behind the curtain.
The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz. And what people seem to forget is that the wizard was a shyster whose balloon blew out of Kansas. And he pulled the wool over and took advantage of a whole lot of people by building something and telling people to ignore the man behind the curtain because he was the great and powerful Oz. So in Behind the Curtain, we ask you to expose the listeners to a truth that if they got exposed to that truth, they would live a better life or they would live their life differently. What truth do you want to expose my listeners to tonight?
So perfect. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was actually born in Kansas, so Wizard of Oz is near and dear to my heart. Many a times we drove through liberal Kansas and saw Dorothy's house. Behind the Curtain. All right. So this has come up a lot for me lately, and it's timely. The layers upon layers upon layers we have within us that are sensitive, those sensitive layers. And it dawned on me here recently that if I'm totally honest, like I'm a much happier person when people like me, when people agree with me, when all is going well. And it's here recently, one of my growth, layers, if you will, that got revealed was just another layer of where, regardless of whether people like you, regardless of whether people agree with you, you still do the work. I've had this happen before, but as we know with this journey, it's a spiral. And so it's layers upon layers upon layers that come forward. I didn't realize how deeply buried some of those sensitivities were. And it's nice to be in a state of awareness where I can observe them and watch them come up, but still feel them. Like it hurts my feelings. Like I feel sad when people choose to be mean, and it's so cool because I see this mirrored in Neva. One of the reasons why we homeschool her is because she doesn't get on many, many levels like how masses of people behave when they're not acting in awareness and in consciousness. And so I'm reminded of that, and I'm a lot the same way, where, when you observe people choosing to react to their own fears and sadness in a mean way and take it out on other people, it doesn't feel good. And so that's come up a lot for me lately, to really sit in that sadness and be okay with the fact that I am impacted by that. It's not my preference. However, I'm not going to structure my life dependent on acceptance and validation from others. But it feels like a juxtaposition at times.
And I just blogged about this. I'm in the process of editing it, so I haven't posted it yet. But I just started writing a blog about this about 3 days ago.
Wow.
And, that one of the things is I've moved past that need, that need for approval that I didn't know existed. Mm-hmm. Get rid of the need for approval that we recognize. We get to a place as people like you and I are growing spiritually and becoming more aware and putting ourselves more out and recognizing the mirrors. But then there's the one we didn't get. That approval we didn't know we needed. And so I know that sometimes what has helped me in the past is when people are mean to me is I touch that piece of sadness I have that they had to be there. I can't always do it. And I think it very much aligns with how important is the relationship to you? How close are they? And the other thing, interestingly enough, even if it hasn't been a close relationship, how long have they known you? That sometimes length falls into it. That even if you weren't all that close, but if someone's known you for 20 years and they say something mean, you go, this person's known me for 20 years. How could they think that or say that?
Well, and I think the challenge is in knowing that people mirror things for us, and that if there is a piece of us that resonates at sadness or fear, that's coming up to be looked at and integrated. I mean, we work with Neva on this. You know, we tell her, keep it at sad. We can work with sad. Like sad can be integrated. Sad can be hugged. Sad can be loved. It's the reactionary, anger and blame and finger pointing and all that stuff. And so that's our saying in our house is keep it at sad. And I was really tested here over the last couple weeks at keeping things at sad, being okay with sad. And I learned to really just embrace it and be like, it's okay. I can feel sad. And at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm not powerful. It doesn't mean that I'm not actualized. It means that in this moment, I can honor that piece of me that has been with me for a very long time. And it's time for it to be integrated and moved. And so it was a big reminder. I mean, it seems simple, but it was a big reminder, especially with all of the journeying and the amount of coaching and everything else that I do. I mean, that's part of the challenge when you do this kind of work is can you continue to do your journey in transparency even in the midst of assisting people with theirs and recognizing that one doesn't negate the other. In fact, they fully support each other. And I think that a lot of people who do this kind of intuitive or coaching work or anything get stuck thinking that they always have to have the answers. They always have to have the appearance of perfection, like don't look behind the curtain type of thing. And the irony is that in doing that, you are your least powerful. That vulnerability and transparency is the most powerful state any of us can be in. But that's not what a lot of us think. That's not what we're programmed to believe. And so I like the discovery process, but that sadness thing, that was a key point these last couple of weeks.
Well, and the thing that I respect about you, I mean, I'm not saying that that's the only thing. One of the things that I respect about you is that fact to be vulnerable and say, and this is where I am. And, when I started my practice 26 years ago, I would say to people, don't put me on a pedestal. And I still get to be human. And about 10 or 12 years ago, I was working with this promoter that was promoting me through Europe. And anytime I did something that she didn't perceive as spiritual, she was like, well, that wasn't very spiritual. Well, that wasn't very spiritual. And I was like, stop. You're confusing a spiritual person with somebody who's like, I don't know, walking on water.
Yeah.
No, but when people like you're doing right now, and I've known, and we have other people that do this, they go out and say, I've had a rough week with sad. That empowers people, Tonya, to go, oh my God, if she can feel sad, it's okay for me to feel sad. And I can get to where she is that I'm not at yet. And maybe somewhere I'm further than she is, and you're further some places than I am, and I'm further some places than you are, and some places we're all further behind, and it's all gloriously perfect.
That feels so good to hear you say that. I thank you for that affirmation. I agree 100%. And it, as you were saying that, I was reflecting on the fact that, coming from the counterintelligence arena, it's like there's no room for transparency. Like that's a big part of the reason why I left was it's, just for the obvious reasons, like you have to lie about who you are, what you're doing, and, all these other not very transparent things. But it's also not an area where you want to show any weakness at all, ever. I mean, even to your coworkers, it's at least that was my interpretation of it. Perhaps if I were to go back in that arena now, I would have a different viewpoint. Where I was at then, it was very shrouded, it was very protective and defensive. And very that hyper masculine energy of competing all the time. And it, it took me a long time to put those things down, to rip those walls apart and to be willing to be out there. I mean, I can't tell you how long it took me to get a Facebook page. Like, it was like, what? You can do this, and, it's just a whole different world when you are willing to step out from behind that curtain, especially coming from a world that was built, with the curtain as the block, so it was really, it's so beautiful. I love that you said that. It really reminded me of that journey. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And, the thing is that truly powerful people are the ones that do show their vulnerabilities, do show their emotions, do cry, do put it out there honestly, because it actually gives people less things to hold over their head.
That's why I wrote my book. I mean, it was hard to admit to being raped by a team member on a national security surveillance mission when I could have killed the guy and I didn't, and it was like that. I felt very weak in sharing that. And it took me doing that and hearing the responses from people to realize that there is real power in sharing that story and in owning the fact that, I probably could have done things differently and I didn't. And here are the reasons why, and here's what I've learned from it. But I sure didn't see that at the time at all. It took me a long time. I wrote that book in 2007, and I can only now say with full conviction that I feel that was a powerful position to play. I did not for a very long time.
So we've got probably less than a minute before our last break. I would like you to, on this break, if you can, go to facebook.com/MyDrKevin, put the name of your book and where people can find it on the comment line. Can you do that for me?
I can do it.
Great. I know that music is going to start any minute now. But what is the name of the book?
It's called War, Watch, Assess, React, The Ultimate Guide to Personal Power and Safety.
Okay, yep. You're going to have to type that on because there's no way I was going to get all that typed in. My fingers don't move that fast. So go to MyDrKevin, and you can go to facebook.com/MyDrKevin.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners and give a message from Spirit about the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, join Carrie each Monday at 3 p.m. on Vibe Nation Radio.
Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show. My computer was being funny, and it wouldn't take me off mute. I was hitting it, and it was just going, but
I love it.
Here at the Dr. Kevin Show, we challenge everything and everyone. Tonight's guest is Tonya Recla. She is the founder of Superpower Experts, and you can go to superpowerexperts.com. And I'm just going to read, I read the same line last time, but I'm going to read it because of this is our last segment. That her clients rely on her to clear the path between them and their highest potential. Her ability to both lovingly hold space and pointedly call bullshit endears her to all who seek her guidance. Well, Tonya, welcome to What a Load of Crap with Dr. Kevin.
I love it.
This is the segment where you get to decide what load of crap that's going on in the world today you just want to call. It can be anything and everything. You have you've got about 6 or 7 minutes to be able to do this. And obviously, I'm going to weigh in. So what load of crap do you want to call?
Oh, I love it. So so many to choose from. The biggest one that I'm on my soapbox about these days is the idea that it takes people like a year-long program and tens of thousands of dollars to evolve. This is my biggest kind of sticking point and why I developed this model for Superpower Experts was that I don't feel like you should have to saw off your arm to get assistance in growth. And so we kind of came out and made the stand that like, look, you can bring a bunch of superpower experts together, people who have really cool superpowers, in a collaborative model that helps a ton of people, does it for an affordable rate, and we can all have fun doing it. And, oh, by the way, people will actually grow faster that way. And I told you, 2 years ago, I kept hearing you have to do this collaboratively. I will be completely honest. Like I was doing individual intuitive coaching at the time. I was making very good money at it. But what didn't feel good was I kept raising my prices, which is kind of the model. And just felt like, one, because it is exhausting. Like when you do energy work, intuitive work, like all this stuff, and you embed yourself in these processes, it is exhausting. It takes a toll on you. And so from my standpoint, it's like, I don't want to do this for much less than this rate. And at the same time, it's like there were so many people I was turning away because they didn't feel like they could afford that rate. And I also, at the same time, was noticing how multifaceted these clients were, and so something would come up and I'd think, oh my gosh, I need to get good at this because they need this, or I need to get good at this skill set. And then it finally dawned on me, wait, I know people who are good at this. Like, why would I need to do all of it if I know other people who do this and I lean on those people for those techniques? So it really started kind of brewing, and I started beta testing a couple ideas on how to work together with other practitioners. And I found out it really is fun. It's fun to work together. And I acknowledged that I was kind of tired of doing it by myself. My husband and I are business partners, but I was the one doing the intuitive coaching stuff. And so all of these things kind of culminated at the same time. And I was watching myself engage more fully in a community of people that really, like, the only way, if you're a coach, like the only model is to just keep doing it, to keep raising your prices. That's kind of been the thing. And there was no real systemization of it. And I'm a big systems person, if you couldn't tell. And so that's kind of where I set about doing it. And what we're finding is exactly what we predicted, which is in a community of people where others are getting that kind of cellular confidence that this can be done with access to the right kind of resources, people are moving so fast. So in a program that may have taken me like 90 days to walk someone through before, they're knocking out in a week or 2 weeks. Like it's shocking how quick people are moving because of this kind of integrated energetic model. And I do think that it's a good example of how we can come together and play together collaboratively. And so that's kind of my shtick. I'm not single-handedly trying to take down that industry, because I do think it has its merits, and I do think that it is very, very valuable, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without it. I do think that there are other things that we can do to accompany it, and really bring some of those really powerful practitioners together in some fun ways. So that's kind of my shtick here lately, and my soapbox, if you will.
Well, and one of the interesting things is, because there was a time when, in order for people to work with me, that I actually would insist that they did not work with anyone else unless they looped me in, so that I knew what was going on. Because what I was finding was, working with multiple people oftentimes created the perfect stalemate to not move forward.
Yep.
That, well, Dr. Kevin said this, but this one said this, and this one said this. And so, well, and it was like the scarecrow. Well, you can go this way, or that way to get to Oz. But they just stood there and stared at the scarecrow pointing. And, on the other hand, if they said, well, I want to work with, this therapist or this energy worker or this, that, I'm like, that's fine. I want you to see if they have any problem with me calling them. And do you have any problem with us, with the two of us talking in your best interest?
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's so funny, because I'm all about the collaborative model. But it's got to come with permission, because some people, and I think it's fabulous, some people move fast, and, people get on saying the world is speeding up and we're getting more things that are available and more things that people can have. So, there are less, hidden symbols and signs that people aren't aware enough to see, or whatever bull.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I love that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that the key word is, there's got to be collaboration between the people, so that the person isn't creating that stalemate.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because it actually loops us right back to what we talked about in the beginning with regard to our attention spans and information and all that stuff. And what I started looking at was that we are not at a loss for information. In fact, we're overly inundated with it. And so on some level, people are doing that anyway. They're looking at energy stuff. They're looking at cognitive stuff. They're looking at body stuff. Like, they're already doing that just because that information is so readily available. And we started seeing that, and we saw exactly what you're talking about, that it was easy for them to say, well, you said this, but so-and-so said this. And so what we did, we just tackled that right from the get-go. One, the collaborative piece is absolutely built into the system. It was a must. People have to want to come and play. It cannot be a my way versus this way. And the experts that we attract are very, very good at that, and get acculturated very quickly into that. And the second piece, though, is from the jump, we said, absolutely, there is no confidentiality. This is not a personal journey. And so the clients and the members that we attract are very clear from the beginning that this is not your normal kind of therapy thing, because if you're going to work through something, we all benefit from it. If you choose not to work through it and resist it, we all suffer, energetically speaking. And so when you kind of take that out of it, it's a whole new different way to look at this stuff. I think that that's what's allowing people to move as fast as they are, because when they can set that down, there's no one to blame. There's no one to point fingers at. There's no one that you can't get caught up in that, well, you said it this way, but they said it this way, therefore I'm absolutely justified in not moving forward. We tackled that as part of the culture itself and took it out of the equation. And I'm very grateful that we saw that early on, and because it happened exactly like you explained. And that's the problem with most collaborative models, is that you do run into that. And so we're just very clear from the beginning that if you want privacy, this is not the group for you. Like, nothing is that private or that sensitive when you operate in oneness. So it's been fun.
So we've got about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, if we're lucky, left. So people have different languaging. sometimes confusion happens because when one person says, oh, you must do it that way, and the other person says you must never do it that way, it's because whatever that way isn't the same definition in the two people saying it or the third person hearing it. Has your group reached a point where somebody felt like they were getting opposite information because people have a different way of seeing the same thing? And if so, how did you handle it?
Absolutely. And it comes down to exactly what you're talking about, which is the interpretation piece. And where we really lean on our experts is it's all on how the information is delivered. It's easy to say, this is my perspective. These are the techniques that I would recommend. And if somebody is working with in a program, then they do have oversight. They do have somebody who helps to kind of communicate with them and translate some of that into that ownership. But because the programs and the sessions and everything that we do is based on helping people find their own resonance, that's really the backbone. And so we can always take it back to that place of, okay, you gathered this information, does it resonate? What resonates within you? And giving them that, helping them tap into that internal authority for them to choose. And a big part of it is just refusing to allow them to abdicate that decision making to us. And our experts are really, really phenomenal at helping lead people around to their own resonance with information. And so it's an ongoing journey, trust me, but it's been a fun one.
Tonya Recla, thank you so much. That's superpowerexperts.com. Back next week, same time. Back to channel.